This episode of the OnlyKings podcast is brought to you by OrganicPricedBooks.com. Guys, there's not been a better time to get into collecting comics, and OrganicPricedBooks.com has multiple formats such as the Omnibus, Deluxe hardcover, and trade paperbacks at huge discounts, such as The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, originally at $125, marked down to $80. Use my discount code NOAH, N-O-A-H, at checkout for an additional discount on top of what you're already getting, which can range from anywhere between 25 to 42% off. Again, OrganicPricedBooks.com, discount code NOAH, N-O-A-H, for an additional discount. Now back to the show. Myles Murphy, man. Awesome to see you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this. I'm just going to get right into it, man. So you started your own podcast, the Three Amigos podcast. And I check it out when I can. I got to say, man, I dig it. I dig it a lot.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so it's a very WWE professional wrestling entertainment-centric podcast. So where did your love for that, sports industry, when did that start for you?
It started for me, years ago when I was a kid, which is, the most case for most fans. And it's the same case for my other two hosts. I want to say I was in probably either kindergarten, first grade, that age range when my fandom really started. I fell off for a little bit around my teenage years due to moving around, just wasn't able to watch it and just honestly kind of forgot about it. And then I picked back up, what is it, six or 7 years ago now, and haven't stopped watching.
No, that's legit, man. So who are the other three guys that you're hosting it with? Those good friends of yours, or who are those guys?
Yeah, they are two very good friends. One's name is Josh Ross. The other is Mason Burden. We all have been friends since high school, and probably a couple years ago, me and Mason, we kind of just started throwing the idea around, just kind of in not even really a serious way. But then last year we were kind of like, what if we do this? And then it just kind of picked up from there. And we brought in Josh. Originally, Josh wasn't even going to be a host. He had thought of more of like a producer role / special guest role. And then I just asked him, hey, do you want to come on and do this with us? And it's been a really exciting, just because of how passionate all three of us are about it and how close we are. So it just makes the episodes feel a lot more, I guess,
it's alive. Like you said, there's passion to it. And exactly. I think, you hit the nail right on the head. That's one of the first things that I picked up. Because like you, I watched wrestling as a kid. And it's hard to stay away from that stuff because it's so flamboyant and it's so in your face. I am not anywhere near as well versed as you guys are, but I believe when I started watching that, would be considered the Attitude Era, the 2005.
The Ruthless Aggression era.
Actually. Ruthless Aggression. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when I started watching, and it's entertaining as hell. I loved the video games. That's what really got me. It was Raw versus SmackDown 2007. That hooked me in God's business. And returning, because actually after watching and listening to a couple of your guys' stuff, I started kind of looking back into what wrestling is now, because it's something I don't recognize anymore. And for better and for worse, in my opinion. And listening to you guys talk about it, though, that's what kind of hooked me in with you guys. They're super passionate about it. And that's what I really like about this format, of podcasting, is you don't need a whole lot to do it. If you really need something, you just need a smartphone if you want to go bare bones. Mm-hmm. And if you are sitting down with the right people, or even just a solo person, I think this even goes past podcasting. If it's a TV show, a documentary, if the people are passionate about it, they can bring you into almost any subject, right? And I think that's super awesome what you guys are doing. So what was that like conversation like where it goes from this is something we really enjoy and we really love, and it turns into like we could sit down and talk about this for hours, multiple sessions and all that stuff.
Right. Honestly, it kind of all started when I started listening to podcasts. I really didn't get into podcasts until probably 2018. And then I found some wrestling podcasts and then I introduced them to Mason. And then me and Mason, like I said, we just kind of joked around and, what if we did a podcast about wrestling? You know what I mean? Shit, we could do that. We could, what if we got big off of a wrestling podcast? So yeah, then it really, nothing ever materialized until, like I said, last year. And I just was messaging Mason and, I said, hey, do you want to do this? Cause I really don't even know what made me really start thinking about it. It was always something, like I said, that interested me and made me, like I said, just really sparked my interest. And, I asked him, hey, you want to do this shit with me? And he said, yeah. And then I guess probably a month went by and, I was just constantly doing my research, on what we would need. And then, I started talking, or Mason actually talked to Josh about it and said, hey, me and Myles are thinking about doing a podcast. And then he messaged me and then just conversation went on between me and Josh and it was like, hey, you want to come on with us? So, and then I like I said, I started looking into gear, started finding microphones and, figured out we would need an interface because we have 3 people and we wouldn't be able to just do it, just plug in a microphone or like a USB microphone into my MacBook and recording like that. We would need more equipment. So, and then, I started telling them and they were willing, to put the resources into it. And it's really been an exciting process just because I feel like it's brought us a lot closer with the product and made us pay more attention to it, especially in terms of having to remember what all is going on during the week, because there is so much wrestling to take in, not only with WWE, but with some of the other companies. Because with us, we only watch North American wrestling.
Right.
There's so much other wrestling. You have European and Japan wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling it's one of the bigger wrestling companies in the entire world.
What was it called again?
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Wow, I haven't even. So they're outside of like North America. They're the industry.
Yeah, honestly, they are. For a long time, they've probably been the second biggest company behind WWE, just because of the reach that they have. And there's been many WWE superstars that have gone through that company.
Oh wow!
And they have a lot of reach in North America. They do a lot of shows here, but most of their stuff is just in Japan. And the culture that surrounds Japanese wrestling is significantly different from American wrestling. For instance, I remember seeing on Twitter they have almost rules regarding like the fans and how they interact. Like they have this installed in them to be respectful during the matches and not chant or do anything. Like if something happens, they'll get excited, but for the most part, they just watch it.
Yeah, it's crazy you bring that up because I watched Rogan had an episode with The Undertaker.
Yeah,
and they brought that up actually. I thought that was really interesting. How because I went to a WWE event. It was one of the untelevised ones when they were kind of just touring, and they brought it through here in New Mexico. And I mean that, like, even as a little kid, I'm pretty sure I went deaf for like 3 days. It is insane how crazy people. You see it on the TV, and you would used to see it on the TV with the live crowds and how bonkers it can get. But now, it was weird to me. Like, speaking about like crowds, I remember when like newer clips would come out of what they're doing in WWE, like trying to adapt to the pandemic. It's a bunch of fucking computer screens in the stands. That was, it was interesting, definitely innovative. Definitely like. What else are you gonna do?
Exactly. And that was the problem when the pandemic initially started, man. Their shows, because there was no fans, the TV, it was just awful. It was on some of the worst product I've seen on WWE, but just because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They had a stretch where they really struggled to adapt. And now they have, and they just did their first crowd for the first time in over a year with WrestleMania
Oh,
just
down in
a
Florida,
few
right?
weeks ago. Yeah, yeah, down in Tampa Bay, they did 2 nights with 25,000 people each night, and now they're talking about doing another crowd show in this summer for SummerSlam, and AEW, they've been doing fans for probably a couple months now. They've just been doing, I think, not even a thousand, maybe a few hundred people. If not over 1,000, and they just started doing some live shows again. But I've been to quite a few house shows myself. I know exactly what you mean. I'd leave there not being able to hear because the pyro was so loud.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I'm knocking my shit off. And as I learned more, and I learned a lot, with the Undertaker interview, as I've learned more about what, especially what they were doing before the pandemic started, I've gained a lot of respect for how much they put into the sport,
Fuck
just the
yeah.
constant traveling. It's honestly probably the only sport where there's literally no nonstop. I mean, except for probably UFC, there is no off season, and I can't imagine, because one wrestler said last year, he said last year was the first time he got to spend Christmas with his kids in probably 8 or 9 years.
That's insane to me.
Mm-hmm. I respect it, and just because they're out there to entertain people like me, people that want to see them, do these crazy do these crazy spots and put on these great shows. And WrestleMania, it was very, very nice finally seeing a crowd. And honestly, I forgot what it was like to have a crowd.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Like, even as a kid, when I know that when I would bring up, like, yeah, I like the WWE, and I had, like, I even found it. Me and my chick, we were going through my old, like, storage containers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had this old, like, toy set, and what it was is it's a not steel, it's like plastic. It was like a plastic box, and you break it apart, and it's a ring, and like you can, like, so if the ring is like right here, there's a part that comes out and over, and that's like the stage where they come out of, and then you can like drop it down like that, and it's like a full cage. Oh yeah, I feel like a fucking kid again. Oh yeah, I'll send you pictures when we're done. And so I had like all these little like figures and all that stuff. I remember like as a kid saying, yeah, I like the WWE, and being made fun of, like, oh, it's fake, it's whatever. It's like, yeah. I'm like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, but how is that fake? I'm watching it, right? But then I get, like, obviously as I grew up and I looked more into it, like, yes, they'll teach you how to take a kick, how to take a punch, but some of that shit you can't fake. Like, you can't fake gravity.
Exactly.
And I think the greatest example is, you probably know when this was a lot better than I do, but when Undertaker throws Mick Foley off the top of a fucking cage and he falls into the commentator, like, you can't fake that.
No.
Like, there's no amount of, like, wire work or, like, he had no wires. There was no padding. Like, I don't care what was lying in that commentator booth, because when it broke apart, I saw no foam. I didn't see a mattress pop out. He just broke through that shit. And I just remember, like, looking at that for the first time, like, oh, is he fucking dead? Or, like the stupidity where, like, they would set fuckers on, like, they'd set the ring on fire and set people on, like, what the fuck? Or I saw a video actually today where it was a flashback to, like, 2010, and they've got a buried alive match, and they bury Undertaker alive, and then you just see a hand stick out. It's like, okay, but he had to hold his breath for, like, how long? Like, what?
I know exactly what you mean, man. Trust me, I've heard it I don't know how long. People always tell me, "Hey, you know that shit's fake, right?"
It's like, well, yeah. Well, yeah,
uh,
they're gonna teach him how to take the punches, how to take a
yeah,
fall or whatever,
yeah.
but I mean, come the fuck on.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, but it never stopped me. And I know exactly what you're talking about. When he threw Mick Foley off of that, I heard he cracked several ribs, he punctured his lung, and there was another spot after that. He goes to choke slam him on top of the Hell in a Cell.
Oh, and he like falls through the thing,
Yeah,
right?
was not planned. They did not plan that at all. And after that one right there, I think that's the spot where his tooth goes through his lip. Yeah, Mick Foley, he's one of the craziest people. He's done a lot of spots like that, and I remember he took a
Right.
spear from Edge at WrestleMania 22, and they went through a table that was on fire. Edge went through it face first, so he said he suffered like second-degree burns from it too. It some of the stuff that they're willing to do just baffles me.
It's
Like
stupid. Like it's
yeah.
cool to look at, but it's like, bro.
A few years ago, I can't remember which WrestleMania it was. I think it was WrestleMania 33, if I remember correctly. Undertaker was in a match with Shane McMahon, and Shane McMahon's in his late 40s at this point. He jumped, and the Hell in a Cell has gotten significantly taller since Mankind got through off of it. It's, I'd say, every bit of 20 feet tall now, maybe slightly, give or take a few feet. Shane McMahon jumps off of it, goes to land on the Undertaker, and just lands on the table.
I saw that. I remember. Yeah.
And that wasn't the last time he did it. He did it after that too.
And you bring up a really interesting point. The dude's in his fucking mid-40s. He's not young.
Yeah.
And I remember like as a kid watching that or watching like various things happen, and I'm like, okay, how are these guys not dead? A. And then I remember very clearly, this is like the first talk I got from my mom about drugs. And it wasn't even about like marijuana, coke, anything like that, heroin, was when Eddie Guerrero died. And they figured that they did the autopsy and it was due to steroid usage. He had a cardiac arrest and it literally broke his heart. And so I had to get that talk because of WWE about the dangers of steroid usage. Because like my dad, I remember when I was a little kid, my dad was a big gym junkie. And I wasn't, like, I never got old enough to be able to ask him, like, if he did steroids or not. My mom swears up and down he didn't. But I just remember him being a huge guy. Real big guy. Idolized fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, all those dudes, right? And so learning through a medium like the WWE, like, this is what steroids can do to you. I mean, that kind of made it real. Like, oh, these guys like going through some stuff. And then I remember in like, God, I want to say 2007, 2008 is when the big controversies came out about like the backyard videos, where everyone was trying to do it. Kids were getting like barbed wire stuck in their neck, nails in their bodies. Like they were breaking their backs on tables. And like the WWE had to come out and be like, hey, fucking stop, you bunch of idiots.
Yeah. It's funny. WWE, they used to come out with these little DVD packages before they came out with the WWE Network now.
Right.
And they'd always say, don't try this at home.
Yeah.
But and you speak of Eddie Guerrero, that's actually, we named our podcast after one of his signature moves, the Three Amigos. And I remember I wasn't old enough to really grasp the weight of his death, and I didn't even know how he died until years later. And looking back on it, it's crazy because back then a lot of those guys were on steroids. Best example was Chris Benoit. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Oh, that rings a really weird bell.
Chris Benoit, he I'm sure he did. It's never been revealed, but I'm pretty sure he did steroids because he was very, very stocky. Uh, I think it was a little after Eddie's death. He killed his wife and son and then killed himself. And it was later.
Yes, I remember that.
It was later contributed to his problems with CTE. And I feel for a lot of these wrestlers because it's been well documented. Several many wrestlers struggled with drug addiction and addiction to painkillers.
This is the Painkillers.
Yeah, Kurt Angle's best example. I think after his initial run with WWE, he left the company. I think around 2010, maybe a little before that. But after that, and it's been revealed years since then, he was taking like 60 Vicodin in a day and drinking like over a bottle of vodka on top of that.
Well, the crazy thing about someone like Kurt Angle is that, dude, a lot of people don't know this, but like Kurt Angle was an Olympic wrestler. Like an actual Olympic wrestler that went to the Olympics. He won a fucking gold medal
with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, with a broken neck. He's an actual wrestler. And then so to see, and that was like always strange. Like when I started learning about these guys, I was like, and watching WWE, and that's what kind of helped. That's not helped, but like that's kind of like what made me distance from it in my teenage years. And I was like, he could break you in fucking half. Like this is hard to like really. I get that it's a scripted show and it's supposed to be a like storylines. Not that I ever followed the storylines as a kid. I can't even grasp like the moves, let alone a story. But like, I would just see these people that would go through and like, okay, so like when I was in like later middle school, almost in high school, I started learning more about like the UFC and fucking seeing Chuck Liddell in WWE. Like, I'm sorry, but Chuck Liddell will line all of you up and just break all of you. Mm-hmm. Same thing like recently with Brock Lesnar. That dude is like 6'something", 250 of straight fucking muscle. Like that, he's just a big muscle. And I just see stuff like I don't is Lesnar still in WWE or is he kind of out of it?
Yes and no. After the during 2020, his contract was up and he didn't renew it, but everybody believes he's going to come back eventually. That's the only problem with Brock Lesnar, and you're right, he is just a specimen of a human being.
He's a fucking Viking. He's a Viking.
Yeah. He's the tip top in terms of just being in shape. And Mason, he can't stand Brock Lesnar because since he came back in 2012, he's been a part-timer. So he'll only show up during the big events and really only when he needs to and collect his check. I mean, he's been the highest paid guy in WWE for like 5 years now.
Really?
Yeah. He, in 2018, I think he earned like $10 million.
More than Cena.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Him and John Cena were very close. But Brock Lesnar, and I get it. I mean, credit to Brock Lesnar. He brings in a crowd. He's the money. John Cena, he stopped appearing full time in 2017, I think. But him and Brock Lesnar, they rose around the same time, and so their careers have always been just right there with each other. And Ronda Rousey too. She's probably the newest example of a combat star that transitioned over to WWE.
Is she still there?
Yeah, she's still under contract. It was just announced a few days ago. I'm sure you saw she's pregnant.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and nobody knows when she's coming back. Her last appearance was 2 years ago now. So and more recently, I just saw last week Henry Cejudo is training to be in the WWE.
Okay. Yeah, and logically, I get why the pro fighters do it. They're like, okay, these people are offering me buku bucks to go fake what I just risked my life doing for Dana White. Like, it makes sense. But then, like, as a casual viewer, I watched that and I'm like more recently, Ronda Rousey. And then that the newish blonde girl, Alexa Bliss, right?
Yeah.
Cute chick. Real cute girl.
Very pretty.
But I watched them go at it and I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Ronda Rousey could just twist your head off.
Yeah.
You have no muscle.
That was Ronda's whole character too. She just her nickname was the baddest woman on the planet, and rightfully so. She walked big, she talked a big game, and she backed it up. And I'll give her credit. She had only been there for a little over a year before she had her big match at WrestleMania, and she did well. I was impressed with her every time she was out there. And it's like you said, I don't blame these combat stars for wanting to transition to WWE and make the money. That's why celebrities do it. Bad Bunny, he just competed at WrestleMania.
See, I don't even know who the fuck Bad Bunny is. Like, I've purposefully stayed away because I just hear the name and I'm like, I don't know what you are. I don't care enough to figure it out.
Bad Bunny, probably the biggest Latin pop star, rapper in the entire world.
Okay.
He appeared in January at the Royal Rumble, and then the rumors started circulating he's going to have a match at WrestleMania. And then it came out, he moved down to Florida to prepare for the match. You don't see that. That's what made me, and even Mason hated Bad Bunny when he first started appearing, but after WrestleMania, he made him a fan. You never see that with celebrities, especially. They don't put in the training, because they said he was training every single day at their performance center in Florida. He was putting in the work. And there have been so many celebrities who have had matches. The best instance back in the Ruthless Aggression era, they had Kevin Federline on TV. And they let him beat John Cena. And then in WCW back in the 90s, David Arquette became the world heavyweight champion.
Oh,
WCW.
wow.
Yeah. And it ruined, but that was when WCW was on a decline. It's one of the many things that ruined WCW. But what I'm saying, you don't see famous people really willing to put in the work. They show up, they do their little guest spot, and then they get their check. And then you don't see them again. Well, it's like Cain Velasquez. He came to WWE a couple years ago. Right?
I heard about that.
Right before the pandemic. Yeah. He had a match, and I had seen videos of him because he was doing independent wrestling as well. He looked good. He could do a few different moves that honestly impressed me for his size. He got hurt. He was supposed to he was going to have a match with Brock Lesnar. Actually, he did have a match with Brock Lesnar. It was awful. It was terrible. And then he got hurt, and then they let him go. And you see that pretty often. Well, you don't see it often, but sometimes people come in, they'll be there for a little bit, and then they'll get fired. And you see it more often with people that have been there for years, and they get fired. This a couple weeks ago, they had a huge firing. They let like almost 10 people go. That's the problem you see more often now with WWE. There's just such a surplus of talent. And even with the many shows that they have, they don't know what to do with them, especially the severely talented people that they do have. So sometimes they just let them sit around and do nothing.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just interesting, like, looking more into it recently. I'm sure you saw it. It came out like maybe 3 years ago, the expose that John Oliver did on the WWE.
Yeah.
And that was super eye-opening to me. And just talking about like how horribly Vince McMahon treats him. And how horrible, like, they don't really have health care. The conditions in which they have to fight, multiple wrestlers being like, yeah, I either broke this, I sprained this, or I was in so much pain from one night, but I had to go back and do it again. So like you said, the painkillers. They'll just pop a couple painkillers and go back after it. And obviously they're making their injuries worse. I'm pretty sure I'm not 100% on this, but I think it was Jake the Snake that had a GoFundMe for some operation that he was having to do. It's just horrible seeing what this is. And like Vince McMahon, I get that he's the director of like the whole operation. And I get that like as far as like the storylines going, especially during like that ruthless aggression era where he was like the bad guy. He wrote himself out to be the villain. Those are usually endearing because on the other side of that, they're not a bad person. But Vince McMahon wears the same hat in both things, and it just blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, it's when I found that out, it's sad. They don't get health care. They have to pay for their own hotels. They have to pay for their own rental cars. It's very eye opening. It was, I did not know any of that, but and one of the superstars came out who had been there for several years already when that story from John Oliver came out, and he was quick to defend Vince McMahon. He was very quick to say,
Who
he
was
loves
it?
his job. It was the Miz.
Okay.
Yeah, he was very quick to defend Vince McMahon and defend the WWE and say, he's loved working there. He's loved working there for his whole career. And he's also revealed, when he first came there, they had it was a completely different atmosphere, especially the locker room, because he came to WWE around 2008, 2009. The locker room atmosphere was, at the point where veterans had such an attitude, and they felt like anybody who was coming in, was trying to take their spot. So they just treated them like shit. Essentially, he said people would take a shit in his bag.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And with Vince McMahon on screen, he said there's a very thin line between Vince McMahon and then Mr. McMahon who shows up on TV. And I actually just watched the A&E. They did a documentary on Stone Cold, and it really highlighted his entire feud with Vince McMahon very
Yeah,
well.
because they went after each other for a long time.
A long time. That's what sparked or not sparked, but that's what helped them in their rivalry with WCW. When WCW was hot, they beat WWE's ass in the ratings for 2 straight years.
Right.
And going back to the injury thing, again, like I said, these wrestlers are willing to lay it all out there for the fans. Stone Cold, he reviewed, and I'm sure he said it before. He said he was wrestling a match. I don't remember what year it was exactly. He tore his tricep during the match and finished it, and then did another match like that same night. And it's just crazy. The healthcare that they do get, because they have a facility in Georgia that like all of them go to if they have any sort of muscular injury or tear something or break something, whatever they may have, they go there and they take very good care of them. But at the same time, and I still don't think they do, where is the benefits, I guess, because there's no retirement plan. There is no backup plan for a lot of those guys, because a lot of the people in WWE now, this is all they've dreamed of for their entire teenage years and childhoods. And that's why a lot of them now are getting into different ventures. I know there's one superstar who invests in real estate with his girlfriend, Seth Rollins. He owns his own coffee shop and owns a CrossFit studio.
Well, I mean, you almost have to, and I think the biggest one that made it, there were some before, I'm sure, but the one that made it apparently obvious that how necessary it is was Dwayne Johnson. He's the biggest man on the planet, both literally and figuratively. He is the biggest thing right now, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. Mm-mm. And he I mean, everyone's heard his story, the whole $7 in my pocket. That's why his production company is called $7 Productions. Like, that dude is, I mean, I know that he inspires me on like a daily basis. Like, I'll be on my phone. I just waste time on my phone like everyone else does, but I'll be like flipping through and I see the rise. Like, yeah, it's 2 a.m. in the Iron Paradise. And I'm like, fuck, man, damn it. And so I gotta fucking get after it.
I gotta go work out.
Yeah, I gotta get fucking after it, man. But you need guys like that. And he's obviously a huge movie star. He's shooting Black Adam right now. He's did that. He had an amazing show, Ballers. If you haven't seen that, it's fucking amazing.
I've been meaning to watch it.
It's good. The last season's kind of iffy, but the first 4 are just amazing television. He has, like I said, he has his production company, has his tequila. He now has an energy drink. Like, the dude, he's just propelled himself. And John Cena's definitely on the coattails. A funny thing, you bring up The Miz. I remember way back not way back, maybe like 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, John Cena came out with that movie, The Marine. And like the Marine sequels, weren't they all The Miz?
Yeah, The Miz has been in The Marine 3, 4, and 5. He's starred in all of them, and even now he's on a reality show on USA called Miz and Mrs. with his wife.
Okay, that's clever.
And it's it's like you said, Dwayne Johnson for me as well. You know, he's a big inspiration. I love what he's been able to do post WWE. It just the following that he's been able to develop and all these different projects and all these different movies that he continues to release. I think anytime I get on Instagram, I see him, he's promoting something, whether it be his Under Armour line or now his
the Under Armour line that I fucking love. I love his Under Armour gear.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think he said it several times. He's made Under Armour the biggest sports brand in the entire world.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And, you know, his tequila, the fastest selling spirit in history, beating out George Clooney's tequila. It's honestly crazy. And like I said, he never stops, you know, now with Black Adam. And then I think before that, he was doing his Netflix movie with Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot. And,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Even before that, he was doing, I think he was doing the Disney movie with Emily Blunt. And then I think
Jungle Cruise.
That's
right.
This year, I think.
Yeah, like Jungle Cruise, and he was doing the Jumanji movies and
Jumanji too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know they're supposed to come out with another Jumanji movie.
Right.
He never stops, and I respect it. I respect somebody who's always after it and always, you know, he's probably already moved on from, you know, thinking about what's going on with Zoe. He's probably already thinking about what he's going to do next. Probably already setting in, you know, what the fuck's going to happen with the XFL.
He's got his hands in that too, huh?
Yeah. It's crazy, and you know he's got his TV show on NBC, which I enjoy.
The Titan games, right?
I forgot about that. Yeah, that and Young Rock.
Oh yeah, right. Not gonna lie, I saw a clip from Young Rock, and I was like, oh, I don't know, man.
I've enjoyed it. I've thought it's been really cool. Just because to see all these old wrestlers and, you know, see what life was like for him growing up and see what it was like, you know, growing up with his dad being a pro wrestler.
Right, I forget about that because his dad was friends with like Andre the Giant and Hogan and all them.
Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper. I know Macho Man's all a bit like, you know, the actors playing them, and to his credit, he did a very good job casting. Literally everybody that he's gotten to play him looks like him when they were that age.
Really?
Oh, he posted them all on his Instagram, which I think he does about 10 posts a day.
Oh yeah.
And it was honestly crazy, wow, the likeness that they had. And like you said about John Cena too, John Cena, he's slowly creeping up there. The the Suicide Squad, and then his now Peacemaker show that he's
Right.
going to be, or that he's filming now. I think people are slowly starting to see the acting chops that John Cena has, and he definitely doesn't have the profile. Well, I don't want to say that he doesn't have the profile because he's a very big star. He doesn't have the footprint in Hollywood that Dwayne Johnson has yet.
Yeah, not yet.
He's done a few movies. Definitely none have been as successful as anything Dwayne Johnson's put out. But like I said, and the thing I do like about him, he's not high. He's very low key. He really just doesn't announce a whole lot of things. I follow him on Twitter. A lot of his Twitter is just inspirational quotes. And then I've seen his Instagram. His Instagram is very, very strange.
He has the Instagram because I follow him too. His Instagram is a bunch of random shit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. His I think his bio is these images are without explanation for your interpretation.
Yeah. No, he's a funny dude, and like I think a lot of that's gonna change after the Suicide Squad comes out. It'll just be interesting to see why they chose Peacemaker to do a show. Because I mean, just looking at that roster, I mean, they passed up Nathan Fillion. And Nathan Fillion is James Gunn's homie.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Funny thing about Dwayne Johnson in the DC universe, he's so fucking passionate about Black Adam. It's awesome to see. And because they announced him as Black Adam like 2 years after Man of Steel came out. Like they've had that dude like they put a reservation on The Rock so Marvel wouldn't come in and swoop him up, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, it was a very, very smart move on their part because you look at them, they're always casting just these huge names for the movies. I mean, more recently, Emilia Clarke for the show with Sam Jackson. I mean, that's so fucking big.
Yeah, and she's rumored to be Spider-Woman.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Wow. And with their Eternals cast, I mean, that cast
is insane.
Loaded.
Is fucking insane.
It's loaded with people. And to like you said, to DC's credit, they're doing a good job of getting these more high profile names for their product or for their projects. And I know you're a huge fan of DC, and I'm a fan of them as well, and I've wanted to see them be able to compete with Marvel just to make it more competitive, because Marvel just had Marvel and Disney has just had a stranglehold on anything
on entertainment,
pop culture. Yeah, and even after they bought Fox, I mean, that's just another testament to that.
Well, the funny thing you bring up about them buying Fox, I was just having this conversation a couple nights ago. So when they bought Fox, and typically I have my homie sitting like off screen right over there looking up fact checking. He could be here tonight, sadly enough. But so I could be wrong. But I remember when they did that Fox deal and they got back the X-Men and Fantastic Four and a bunch of like other like obscure Marvel properties, like Ronan the Conqueror and Galactus and Silver Surfer and all that craziness. They get them all over and they're like, all right, dope. They absorb 20th Century Fox and they end up axing like 200 projects. And that was pretty shitty to see. But apparently when they were doing all this, it was out without court, right? They weren't in court over it. But then Disney was like, okay, no, that's cool that we got all this. I want Fox Sports too. And they were like, go fuck yourself. And they took them to court.
Wow.
Yeah, it ends up going to the Supreme Court, and the judge is like, or the Supreme Court finds that right now, unless laws change or whatever, I think this is back in like 2017. If Disney cannot legally buy any more properties, they have to create their own. because if they buy any more IPs, they have a monopoly on the entertainment industry, and that is illegal.
I didn't hear that at all.
Yeah, which is fucking insane when you think about how much entertainment there is. Like, they have a monopoly. That means they can't buy a streaming service. They can't buy a music distribution service. They can't buy anything. They have to create everything. Or they have to make a deal.
Yep, and they just did that with Sony.
With Sony and Spider-Man, right? Exactly.
Yeah, which they needed. I remember how big a deal that was when Sony was thought about backing out of their deal.
Well, they did back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did back out. They're like, yeah, we're done. Fuck you guys. And then Tom Holland got drunk on Instagram and like drunk called all the executives, and then they got him back. But yeah, no, it's insane. And I don't know, like kind of looking at Warner Brothers, they are just so inept in their leadership. And there are obviously a bunch of conversations that you and I will never hear, you know, that the mass majority of people will never hear behind the closed doors and all that insanity, you know, whatever goes on there. But like, we see the product of it. And I saw a really good, it was a funny comment, but it's the truth. I was on one of the Snyder Cut trailers, and the comment was, Marvel just got done doing 23 movies, and they've already pumped out 2 shows. DC is still editing their first Justice League movie. Like, it's a bit of a reduction, a simplification, but it's the truth. It is.
Then I tell Mason that all the time because he's not a fan of DC at all. I've tried to get him into it several times, but he won't. He's a huge Marvel fan, and I said it. Marvel did a better job of setting up, you know, their Avengers movie than how Justice League did, or Justice League, Warner Brothers did with Justice League, and it's such a weird contrast of properties, you know, and how well Marvel did it as compared to how rushed it was with DC.
Yeah, and well, and I disagree. I don't think DC did a bad job setting up Justice League. I think they hired the wrong person for what they wanted.
I would agree
for
with
what
that.
they wanted, right? Now,
agree with that.
What I want is what Snyder's been doing. That's what I want. But I've also been like reading these stories and invested my time into this as I was like a kid, right? That's who Snyder's making these movies for. He's not making these movies. Like, I would say Man of Steel is a very casual movie going experience, but with like Batman versus Superman, the more you know about the characters behind the movie, right? The more you've read, the more intuitional decisions you can make about their characters, about what's possibly happened, why things are possibly happening, the more you get out of the movie. So if you're a casual moviegoer, especially with the PG-13 version, and you watch BVS, you're going to think that's a pile of shit. You know, and the rated R version is a lot more cohesive of a movie. But like, I just remember watching Batman vs. Superman in the theaters and thinking that was like the second coming of Christ. Like, I fucking loved it. But like, my casual friends were like, that was so dumb. None of that made sense. So I remember sitting at an IHOP at 2 a.m, like breaking it down for them, like why all these things mattered. And then at the end of the conversation, they're like, I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to see that in the movie, but yeah, thanks, man. and I understand that, you know?
Right.
So
and
like,
you get passionate fans like you that you know what you're supposed to be seeing. You have a certain standard that you've come to expect when you go to the movies, and if you watch a certain movie from a certain director like Zack Snyder, who's just has the stories much more well crafted than what Joss Whedon put on the screen.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Like, well, the thing with Snyder is like, because I don't blame him for what he did. Because if you look at his filmography, right, as far as working with comic book properties. They gave him 300. I don't think that was Warner Brothers, but he got 300.
Mm-hmm.
No, Warner Brothers passed on that actually. I think it was like Lionsgate or some shit. Gave him 300, and he knocked it out of the park with 300. Warner Brothers gives him Watchmen, like the most celebrated graphic novel of all time, right? And so he does it, remakes it panel for panel. Most people love it. And he's like, oh, well, that was a positively received movie from the fans. So if I ever get a DC proper, story, I'm going to like make it for the fans. Like I'm going to fucking do it. And if you watch interviews specifically from Affleck in the time that BVS was coming out, he sits down and he goes like, look, this is not made for critics. Like this is made for the fans. Like this is not, because I remember especially he said that on Fallon, because Fallon was like, I saw the movie. It was huge. It was loud. I loved it. People started like clapping. And Affleck's like, yeah, but this isn't made for critics. Like this is made for fans of the comics. Like don't go into it like that. It's a fan movie. And so, I mean, if you look at Snyder's point of view, he got Frank Miller's second most famous graphic novel, arguably, the most celebrated DC Comics graphic novel in Watchmen. So it makes complete sense that in Batman vs. Superman, he adapts Frank Miller's most famous graphic novel and one of the most celebrated graphic novels from DC, The Dark Knight Returns. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
And I mean, it's well known now, but he wanted to do like a 5-movie story arc. He didn't want to do an entire cinematic universe. He wanted to tell his story because the dude is used to reading comics. He wanted to give the 5-issue summer arc, right. like the big event. Or I mean, you could even like look at the Snyder Cut, how long that fucking movie is. You could look at those parts like that's a 6 or 7 issue miniseries. Right? That can be easily put to page. And so if Marvel or if DC wanted to go in, or Warner Brothers actually wanted to go in and compete with Marvel, yeah, they fucked up hiring Snyder. But they made, in hindsight, they made the right move, because Snyder, I think, is the only director, aside from maybe if they were to manage to get Christopher Nolan back, but I don't think that would have worked just because of people expect a grounded version when grounded is the last thing they need to be. And I mean, aside from like Nolan, Snyder, or maybe a David Fincher, if you want to do like a darker, realistic take on the characters to differentiate yourself from Marvel, that's the guy you need. Yeah, it's just interesting. And then with going back to like the Suicide Squad, I'm just interested to see like how much that relates to Snyder's universe. Because, I mean, Margot Robbie, well, really anybody carrying over from the first Suicide Squad movie, because that movie was fucking atrocious. But anybody carrying over, that's Snyder's universe. Like, they were helped casted by Snyder. So it'd just be interesting to see what they do with that. Like, because like in reality, you've got Peacemaker. That show's going to take place in the same universe as Ben Affleck's Batman. Like, that's just a reality. Unless Flashpoint kind of, like, fucks things up and does all that. But, it's like, I'm assuming you saw Snyder Cut, right?
I did.
Yeah. I don't get how you end that movie and then not continue.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I don't see how, and especially when it had such great fan reception. From what I saw, everybody fucking loved it.
Everyone loved it.
I loved it. And I don't see how, if you're Warner Brothers, how you don't pay attention to that. And, they did it already with, bringing the Snyder Cut, bringing it to HBO Max. You have to think that they're not tone deaf and realize, hey, this could become something. This could be maybe the best thing we've done in
a long time.
Yeah. And it's like you said, I see it, more and more with the more Disney pumps out. They're making these Marvel movies more or less now for the critics, and they're making them to be box office darlings. They're making to be these powerhouses. As I mean, you saw with Endgame, the highest grossing movie of all time.
100%.
Except for when Avatar came back out. But
Yeah. Yeah, China. Yeah.
I had to stick it to Disney one last time. But and we see it. They don't have the same type of stories compared to DC. They're very campy. They're very just set in, I guess, just this happy tone. I mean, maybe excluding Infinity War.
But that's what made Infinity War so great, is they were like,
exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
You're not just a cookie cutter studio. You made the villain win. Like, that's what made that so big.
I'm seeing more tones like that with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I love like just the racial undertones and the them dealing with Bucky's PTSD in such a, I don't want to say dark manner, not even dark, just a realistic way.
They're handling it with respect.
Exactly. And I'm excited. I might stay up tonight just to watch the finale. And they did it with WandaVision as well, dealing with Wanda's PTSD of losing Vision. Her being really the only one after Endgame that didn't get to be there with somebody.
Yeah.
To have somebody to console in. And it's interesting, to see what directions DC went, with Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, and even, the Snyder Cut. You go with these darker tones, and you go away from the norm of what essentially Marvel has made into superhero movies. And I kind of liked how Shazam was kind of a step away from that. They went with the funnier tone. I think it worked nicely.
It fits Shazam. Like, it fits the newer version of Shazam that did in the New 52.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see what James Gunn does with the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Compared to the original. Because, you saw the success he's had with the two Guardians movies. He knows how to make a comic book movie.
Yeah.
And he had it's just such a bigger ensemble cast than obviously what he had with Guardians. And I think it's going to be very nice to see what he does. And I'm really excited to see what Zack Snyder's going to do with Army of the Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Army of the Dead's a weird one, though. Because I remember watching or seeing the initial posters and being like, why does this look like a James Gunn movie? I don't want a James Gunn movie. Like a directed James Gunn movie, Because like my first exposure to Zack Snyder was Dawn of the Dead. When I watched that movie way too young when it first came out, but like I loved Dawn. That blew my fucking mind. I just watched it last week, actually. I rewatched it. And that movie blew my fucking mind. And I love watching it. Have you seen Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome,
I remember as a kid, I like you said, I was just blown away. I didn't know what to think of it.
And I love watching it. But what I hate about watching it is the ending. I hate the ending because it's so fucking good. like it's such a great, like it could end right there. They're sailing off into the sea and maybe they make it, maybe they don't. But no, you see them go to an island and the island's overrun by zombies, and then it just goes to montage of zombies and down to the sickness. Like, I want to know what fucking happens. Like, I want to know.
Yep.
Like,
I'm the same exact way.
Like, man. I want to know what the fuck happens. And so Army of the Dead has a really strange history. Because that was greenlit like 2 years after Dawn. And Snyder wasn't going to direct it. He was going to produce it with his wife. And James Gunn was still going to write it, I think, because he wrote Dawn of the Dead. And they got some directors in and out. And at one point, the rumors was like the zombies were going to be like able to rape humans. And like, yeah, it went through a really weird like limbo and purgatory. And it just got shelved, right? For obvious reasons. And then so now, it went through a really strange, because like Snyder dropped out of it for the longest time, and that's when it started getting weird. Well, Netflix buys it, and this is pre-pandemic, and they buy it. They approach Snyder. They're like, "Hey, do you want to do this? We know you got fucked on Justice League, but we'll let you make your movie, man. Do what you want." And James Gunn was going to come back and write it, but then the pandemic happened. Things got postponed. He got picked up to do Suicide Squad, and now he's got like Suicide Squad, Guardians 3, and the Guardians like holiday special or whatever it is. So they had to get a new guy to write it. But I remember looking at the posters, being like, "All right, I don't want this. I don't want bright colors. I don't want like cartoony. I don't want that. I want Dawn of the Dead, to be honest with you." And then the first trailer came out, and that's an interesting trailer.
Yeah,
I don't know what to think of it. I think the action is definitely going to be there, and I think that this might be the movie for Batista. Like going back to WWE, I think this is going to be the movie for Batista that really shows that he can be an actor. So I think he was casted perfectly as Drax, the big dumb idiot.
I agree with you.
You know, just a big dumb idiot.
Yeah.
But I think this could be the movie. This will be the movie that either shows that he could be an actor, or it's like, it's Batista.
Yeah, and he had those 2 movies that came out last year during the pandemic, Stuber and then I Spy.
And I watched neither one.
Them. Yeah, I haven't seen them. Heard they're just not good. I've heard they're not good. Yeah. So, and I think that probably, put a bad taste in his mouth. And I think he's, maybe he's wanting to bounce back with this. Yeah. And we saw it with Guardians of the Galaxy. He's a good actor. He has acting.
He has the ability.
And it'll be interesting to. I'm sure there'll be comedic elements to his character, but it would be interesting to see him go with more of a serious side, because I have seen him do. I've seen him do both in WWE for years. I've seen him do serious, and he's had some comedy elements to his character. So I've seen what he can do, but obviously that's a very watered down version of what could be on a big screen.
Yeah, and I think like right now Snyder's the guy to do it. He's such a hot name right now. Like everyone, God, for years people hated Snyder. And I was like the only one with my picket sign being like, he's awesome. And then like now everyone loves Zack Snyder. And I'm just like, I told you. Like, he's had to stick with it. For fuck's sake, stick with it.
I've seen several of your Facebook posts, hashtag restore the Snyderverse.
Like, so I think Snyder's the guy to really bring Batista forward, and I'm looking forward to that. But I'm worried that it's not gonna have the dirtiness of Dawn of the Dead, because Dawn of the Dead feels dirty, like it feels grimy for as many comedic elements that it has, for as cool as some of the shots are. It's just a dirty movie. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason for that is like Snyder doesn't use a whole lot of slow-mo in that movie. Like there's really not a whole lot. And so the movie's super fast-paced. And his other movies, you're able to like see the slow-mo. And I love his explanation for it is he goes, I like doing slow motion because it looks like a comic panel, and that's cool. Like that's a great justification for it.
Yeah. Very.
And so, which is also the reason why I love that Snyder Cut was in that 4:3 aspect ratio. It just made everything seem huge. Like I loved it. But since that movie is so fast, the blood's everywhere, body parts are everywhere. I mean, just everything's happening so quickly. It feels grimy. And like the color schemes and the deafenings of the grays are just, it just feels grimy. And I don't think we're going to get that with Army of the Dead. It's just the vibe that I get. I could be wrong, and I hope that I'm wrong. But I want the same tone. And I want it to be in the same universe as Dawn, to be honest with you. Like, I think that's just
that would be dope.
That's just a huge missed opportunity. Like, I don't know.
I feel like the genre of zombie movies has just been at this point, it's been watered down, probably mostly because of The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead has, I mean, it's The Walking Dead. Everybody knows how big of a product that is, and just what they've done I mean, mostly for AMC, but I guess for the zombie genre, yeah, I don't even watch the show anymore. I used to. I liked it for a little bit.
I fell off in like halfway season 7.
Yeah, yeah. I think I watched season 9, and then that was it. But they don't and they don't embrace the zombie genre to the fullest. Because I mean, now it's not. It's really not even zombies. It's human drama. It's Rick's gang fighting against somebody else always.
Right.
But with you've seen so many different iterations of zombies that zombies that are coherent, zombies that aren't, zombies that can run and jump, and you've seen so many different versions. And I think, like you said, it probably take a little bit away from the grittiness that we saw with Dawn of the Dead, with judging by the trailer, with the zombies actually knowing what's going on. But it'll be interesting to see if it's still good. I'd say it probably will be, and I think it needs it. The zombie genre, I enjoy it for the most part, especially in terms of horror movies. And I think it needs it'll definitely be a nice change of pace as to what we usually see with that genre, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely needs a jump start.
Mhm.
Because really, like, it kicked off with Dawn of the Dead. Like, I think Snyder's Dawn of the Dead really helped it in the mainstream become a lot bigger, like a bigger again. Outside of the George Romero movies, like the original Night of the Living Dead, Dawn Day, all that. And then Romero came out again with Land of the Dead, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen that, it's really good. Um, and then we had like Call of Duty doing their zombies, and that's just like, for people, like, I know for me and a lot of other people, that's the only reason I bought Treyarch's Call of Duty, was to see what they did with zombies. And of course, by Black Ops 4, they ended up ruining it, but in my opinion. But there was just
I don't even play it.
yeah, well, there was just a solid like World at War to Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, where it was just good,
Yeah,
good zombies. Really
what I've always
good.
heard. Well, and then before that, you had Resident Evil carrying the
Yeah.
zombie genre for years with their
Yeah.
movies and their games.
Yeah. The movies aren't good though. Good God, those movies are not good.
I I like the first one, but after that, the quality just significantly drops off with each movie.
Dude, I can count on like one hand the amount of times I've left a movie theater pissed. And no, so I remember years ago when the very last one came out, me and my ex went to go watch it because she loves those movies. And I was like, all right, you have bad taste, but whatever. That should have been the biggest red flag. Boof. But so we go and we plop down and we're watching the last one. It was the one where like they're in a giant tower and Ruby Rose is in it.
I know what you're talking
That
about.
movie is so fucking incoherent. And like there's so many, like, I remember the scene at the very end where the main girl is about to take down the bad guy and she has to go through this like clear hallway. And there's so many just quick cuts of like everywhere and you don't know what's going on. And just I could not have been happier when that movie was over. I was like, thank God. And I just, oh my word. I'm looking forward to the Netflix remake though.
Yeah, it looks really good. I saw the trailer. It looks really cool.
Oh, they have a trailer out?
Yeah. It just came out, I think, earlier this week.
Oh wow. No, I've only seen like the casting for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I think in it you mostly only see really I think you only see like Leon and Claire, but
no shit.
The biggest problem with those movies is, like you said, they're so incoherent, and they try throughout the whole franchise. They try to get too smart. They make the storyline just so convoluted. Like in that last movie, I think Alice ends up finding out she's not even the original Alice.
Right.
She's a clone. Which was like the whole thing throughout the whole franchise, was that she was the real Alice. And I think like in the fourth or third one, she was killing other Alice clones. And then
That-
come to find out,
yeah.
she's just a clone of the owner's daughter.
Right. I forgot all about that. Holy God.
That came from the depths of my brain. I don't know. I've seen those movies more times than I'd like to admit. And the more I see them, the more they just disappoint me.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I'm looking forward to Resident Evil 8, though. The new game, Village.
Yeah, I'm too.
I've purposefully stayed away from all the trailers just so I can kind of go in fresh. Because I had no idea what Resident Evil 7 was going to be. I just knew that it was going to be first person. And I loved that game. I think I'm going to try to play it again before 8 comes out.
I thought about doing the same thing. And I think the only thing I saw with Resident Evil 7 was like, I'd only heard about it. I had seen like screenshots, from seeing this little house and seeing some of the screenshots of the family, and that was it.
Very Texas Chainsaw, which I loved.
Yes. And there's a lot. I like the first person element of it, especially. I think that just added that added something. Because I never really played any of the old Resident Evil games, but from what I've heard, it added just an element that fans have been wanting for a long time.
It made it a lot more intense. Like it's just
definitely
scary as shit. And like I played the old school Resident Evils, and honestly, what turned me away from them was the fact that it was like walk, turn, walk, turn, walk, turn. And I get that they kind of got away from that with Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. But Resident Evil 4 is legit. Like, that's just a damn good game. Resident Evil 5 kind of started when it went downhill, just because there's a lot more action than it was story. And then 6, just like a shoot 'em up, and I couldn't even finish it. And 7, I love the first half of 7 more than I do the second half of 7, just because it's a lot more. It's just Resident Evil. It's more story. There's a lot of world building. I'm a huge horror junkie, so many elements of the Texas Chainsaw universe being used properly was fantastic. The fact that you're trapped in a house again, I love that. Throwing it back to the first Resident Evil. But like the second half of the game where it's like you're on the boat and there's a bunch of black goo monsters everywhere, that just seemed lazy. It just seemed really, really lazy, but it was still cool to play.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was just interesting. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Resident Evil 8. But again, I think that's just a really good example of a studio course correcting properly.
Mm-hmm. Did you play the Resident Evil 2 remake?
Yeah, and I loved it.
I enjoyed that one as well. I liked it a lot, especially because, like I said, I hadn't played Resident Evil 2 or any of the original ones. So I went into it just fresh, just brand new, and I loved it. I enjoyed just everything about it. And probably my favorite part was, the fact that you could do 2 different storylines for both Claire and Leon, and they both intersected each other quite a bit.
Yeah. No, and that's what they did with that and the Resident Evil 3 remake. I know people got mad because number 3 wasn't very long, and they kind of dumbed down the usage of what's the big fucker's name? The big dude that chases you. You know what I'm talking about, right? I forget the guy's name.
I know what you're talking about.
It'll come back to me at 2:00 in the morning. But that's just a really good example of a studio being able to course correct properly, recognize their mistakes, and do better. Whereas Warner Brothers, they know what the fuck they're doing. And you brought up a really good point that not only did the fans and the critics enjoy Snyder Cut, HBO Max is the perfect place. If you really don't like Snyder that much, give him to HBO Max and let HBO Max, because all he wants to do is Justice League 2 and 3. That's all he wants is Justice League 2 and 3 to finish out his story and move on. And I don't see what's so hard about that. Because people are so hard stuck on Flashpoint resetting everything. Flashpoint doesn't have to reset everything. That's the whole point of Flashpoint, is that he created a whole nother world. And so when he fixes Flashpoint, everything merged together into the New 52. Like, that was the whole point. So who's to say that you can't do Flashpoint and it accidentally propels the Snyderverse into its own Earth, and then you have a new Earth with a new version of these characters? What's wrong with that?
Maybe they need to hit you up for some ideas.
That's what I'm fucking saying. But no, like, I don't know, like, why they have such a big bone to pick. And I'm sure you've seen everything with Ray Fisher.
Yeah, I have.
You know, and like, I remember, like, Snyder Cut made me emotional all different sorts of fucking directions. But like, I remember watching that movie because I've been following Ray Fisher's case pretty closely, and I just keep my chick informed on what's important. And I told her before the movie started, I was like, yeah, the reason why they purposefully cut down Cyborg's story is they didn't like him, and they didn't like Ray Fisher. And because Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon, I think Tony Emmerich as well as Walter Hamada, or any combination of those names, they didn't want an angry black man at the center of their story.
That's what I heard. I heard about those comments.
And just watching them, like, that alone, movie or no movie, that alone is fucking disgusting. Like, that, like, yeah. Like, that just disgusting as shit.
You see that more and more, you know, with even with the world we live in. It's, you know, I mean, just the other day, you know, it felt like such a big step in the right direction with, you know, Derek Chauvin getting convicted, but at the same time, it's only a very small step in, you know, what should have never happened.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot, no, I haven't seen that much, but I've seen, you know, enough to, you know, what's going on with the Ray Fisher thing. And you see stuff like that, and you know, how are people in these positions of power that have these just such backwards mindsets? Because, you know, from what we saw in Snyder Cut, you know, Ray Fisher was the highlight of the movie.
He was exactly what Snyder had been saying for the past 3 years. He's the heart of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And he was everything that I wish he could have been in Joss Whedon's version. And what you obviously could tell that he could be. And, you know, it's nice to see him get a pedestal like that, and, you know, to see somebody like Dwayne Johnson getting such a big pedestal, you know, being the main casting in Black Adam, which obviously is, you know, a black character. But it's like I said, it's a step in the right direction, and hopefully, I hope we end up get it. Or there's supposed to be a Cyborg movie, isn't there?
There was supposed to be, but they axed it because of everything that's been going on now, and they yanked him from the script of they yanked him in the script from The Flash, which is super disappointing. And it's just crazy to me because, like, Warner Brothers parades around on this mantra of we're inclusive, we're, you know, we have diverse cast, yada, yada, yada. But then you look at what they did to Snyder Cut and what they allowed to happen, and you cut out a main black character, because I wouldn't argue that Cyborg's a side character. He's a main character in that movie. Like, he's a main player. So one of the main characters, you cut out pretty much his whole story. You cut out Ryan Choi, so now you're cutting out an Asian American's character. You cut out the whole storyline of the mom, the African American or the Asian mom, the Asian American mom who got the money from Cyborg. Remember that in the whole like hologram scene where he goes like that and all the money piles up. You cut out all that.
The girl with Flash.
Iris West, thank you. You cut out Iris West, so another black character you cut out. So it's like, why are you doing this? And then part of Snyder's plan was to have an Atom movie that he would executive produce. So, like, what are you doing here, really? And like, I just remember watching that movie, and yeah, if you really want to reduce somebody to such ugly terms, I'd say in the first half he's an angry black man, but that's the point. He had his life taken from him. I wonder if that's a theme if black people can relate to. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you're shitting me, right? Like, you're kidding me. We're watching the same. Okay, cool. And then, but by the end of the movie, the storytelling's fantastic, obviously, but the scene where the Flash reverses time, flies into Cyborg, boom, you finish the Flash's storyline, and you immediately jump into Cyborg's conclusion. They just like that. And he has that moment where he's ripping apart the mother boxes and he goes, I'm not broken and I'm not alone. I want to find these fucking people and just like sit them down and watch the movie with them. I'm like, we watched the same movie, right? Tell me you're not a racist. Like, you fuck.
I agree. And how can you see a performance, like the one Ray Fisher delivered? Because you can just, with the delivery of his lines and his scenes, you can feel him really just putting his emotion into these
Everything.
Yes, and with obviously there's the motivation there because of the loss that Cyborg is going throughout the entire movie, through the first and second half of it. And it's like you said, we see all the time just black people and any minorities in general get so many opportunities taken away from them and losing their lives over people who just don't understand. And more recently, I saw it. It was the same day of the Derek Chauvin verdict announcement. A girl in Columbus, Ohio, 15 years old, murdered by a cop because she had a knife trying to defend herself from other girls. And the kicker was she called the cop.
Yeah, that's a weird one because, like, I've been trying to. It's so hard today to figure out what story's the right one because I've heard that version of it where it was she was being attacked. She was trying to fend away the police with a knife, or not the police, trying to fend away the other two girls with a knife, and she was the one that called the cops. I heard another version of the story where she was the one attacking and a bystander called the cops, but someone else had already did, so they hung up because while they were on the phone with dispatch, police pulled up. Huh. And so police pulls up, they know someone's attacking with a knife, they see a knife and they shoot.
Right.
And I think that just speaks to like negligence on the part of mainstream media. Like, there shouldn't be two contradicting stories. And honestly, exactly. with stuff like this happening, I want to know who's leaking this body cam footage. Like, who's leaking the body cam footage and thinking you're doing anything good? Like, should there be transparency? 100%. But don't reveal the ugliest parts of the story before you know the back, like what's leading up to that. That doesn't seem right to me.
There's always sorry. There's always a loss of, like you said, transparency when stories like these come out. There's always so many different sides to stories. There's a side of the victim, there's a side of witnesses, just so many people, and all of these conflicting reports come together to form one big story that these media outlets are putting out, right, that are almost always inaccurate.
Yeah.
You're never going to get the full story. And we see a lot of that with, like I said, a lot of stories that come out, and sadly a lot of them being bad stories and stories about people getting killed or people getting robbed and people dying and whatever you may have. There's always, we say there's always two sides to the story. I mean, we don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah.
We only see what we hear in the media. We only see what we read on social media and what we hear on the news and however you get your news source. And that's where we lose a lot of the transparency.
Yeah, and you bring up a real good point. Like, I can't tell you the last. Well, that's a lie. I can't tell you. Yesterday, I went on to ABC and CNN so I could do a live report or a live updates on the Chauvin trial. But before that, I can't tell you the last time I went on to an actual news source to find news. It's always through Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah,
That's how I found out about things. And I could have very well have just kept refreshing my Facebook feed, waiting to see a verdict. Like, it showed up anyway. And there's an interesting point where things like social media, like your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter, how big these have become, that there's almost an argument that they need to make these they need to classify them under utilities than actual private companies because of what they're doing. Like, they have the ability, like it's a public usage, like everyone uses it. And now, like they have the ability to sway elections. And I don't think anybody can argue against that, for better or worse.
I mean, you look at all social media, just this past election, everybody, really just every powerful celebrity there is was saying go out and vote.
And when they say go out and vote, we really mean what they mean. Like, we know what you mean. Go vote for Biden.
Exactly.
Like, everyone, whether you're Democratic, Republican, Independent, you know what they mean. Especially when it's the certain celebrities, let's put it that way. Like, those celebrities that are so, like, they are so intent on, like, look, should celebrities use their platform? I have no problem with that. The problem that I have is ingenuity. Like, not ingenuity, not being genuine.
Yeah.
Not being genuine in what they're doing. It's like, if you genuinely believe that Bernie Sanders, Trump, fucking Biden, whoever it is, you really think they should be the person? Sure. Be genuine about it, though. Don't be just taking the money and saying, yeah. Like, no shade against her specifically, but like Billie Eilish was saying, go out and vote. Like, okay, if you really believe Biden's the guy, sure. But like, you're an 18-year-old girl, 17, 18-year-old girl. Why should I be taking advice from you? I'm an almost 24-year-old man and I'm still stupid. That's why I started the podcast, so I can learn from smarter people. Like what? Why should I be taking election advice from you? Like, it's just weird to me how clearly social media is like just a cancer. But then on the other hand, the social media has been able to do really beautiful things. Like, yeah, it's great that we got Zack Snyder Justice League, but that raised a shit ton of money and a lot of awareness for suicide prevention.
Yeah.
Like, this episode right here, you and I talking over Zoom couldn't happen without social media. It couldn't happen. And it's just weird. Like, I don't think social media should be regulated, but I just think it should, like, the owners need to be taking responsibility.
I agree. I agree. And you look at all social media, and like you said, none of it's regulated. Anybody, it's free speech. Anybody can get on there and say whatever they want. But at the same time, there's a big problem with that. You see so many people, so much negativity. Yeah. More so than the positive things you see on social media.
No, for sure.
Just because you're always gonna have that one person that feels they should comment on whatever your post is and share their opinion. And then that leads to just another person, and then another person, or somebody disagreeing with that, and then it starts an argument, all because somebody felt, I don't want to say the need, but somebody felt like they could use this platform to share their opinion. And I see it a lot on Facebook, people, just sharing what's going on with their day. And I don't want to say I don't care about, what's going on with you, but, I'll look at this and I'll support you or whatever. And that's then again, that's the beauty of social media, because you see so many people sharing the positive things in their life and so many people sharing their success and they feel the obligation to let other people know, hey, I'm doing this, I'm living my best life. And I feel like sharing it with you, you need to see this and notice me.
And even that can get scary too,
Exactly.
because it's like, well, and that's also just going under the assumption that what they're posting is the truth, right? That they are living a great life and all these things. You have these people that aren't living to up to whatever standard that is, and they're like, oh, well, why the fuck am I not living that way? And then you just spiral into a whole conversation about mental health and how bad that's gotten in this country. But yeah, like a lot. Like I remember I read a quote where it was the girls on Instagram don't even look like the girls on Instagram, so don't worry about it. Like if you look at, and I think the model example is the Kardashian family. If you look at those women before they got work done, it's almost night and day.
Crazy.
And like, look,
It's
I get it. If you've got the money, if you've got the fucking ability and you want to do that with your life, you go right ahead. And they obviously have more money than I will ever see in one room. But
definitely
like for instance, Kylie Jenner put up a picture. I think it was Kylie Jenner. I don't know. Like a week ago, and it's just like how sad she is about like women's body images and how like horrible it can be on social media. And I'm like, you and your family are the reasons that women around the world have insecurity issues. You're adding to it because of all the fakeness that you shoot on your social media pages. You make wives and girlfriends around the world feel like shit. You have no pedestal to stand on right now.
I've seen that with some of my friends. So they I don't want to say they necessarily compare their girlfriends to the Kylie Jenners that you see on Instagram, but they're sitting there looking at these women, talking about, look at how hot she is. And it just, like you said, it's causing these young women and these young girls to have such big insecurity issues and, asking themselves, why don't they look like that? Why don't I look like Kylie Jenner? Why can't I have as much money as Kim Kardashian? Why can't I, or why am I not as successful as Billie Eilish, who's
Right.
18 and already has, I mean, more money than most 18-year-olds in the entire world?
Well, like it's insane. Like I think the statistic from 2019 was if you make over 31 or $32,000 a year, you're in the 1% of the world.
Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it's insane. And like, God, I don't know. It's just it's weird the time that we live in for social media and the fact that we have it. Because I mean, like 30 years ago, we didn't have it, and 30 years ago is a blink of an eye. Like that's not a long time.
I know. And you look at what social media was able to do last year for, again, a lot of these celebrities. They were just using, and even a platform like Zoom. That's how they were doing interviews, and using platforms like Instagram Live to promote all of the things. Like I remember seeing Lil Boosie. He was going on there every day for over 100 million viewers, or over 100,000 viewers. He like broke their record for viewers,
That's
and
crazy.
Instagram banned him. Instagram deleted his account, and then he created another account. They banned him again, and now I think he's like permanently banned.
Oh wow.
But and because I think like women were coming on there, and we would tell them, no nudity or anything like that. They would come on there, of course they would, show nudity, and I think that's why he got banned.
Wow.
But social media, it's obviously such a powerful tool that like you said, we didn't have 30 years ago. Nobody was able to do any type of promotion that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Like, again, somebody like The Rock would, if we didn't have social media, we wouldn't know about his tequila. We wouldn't know about his energy drinks. The only way we know about them is if we saw it on a commercial on TV.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And for the most part, I'm thankful for it, but it's just like the glaring negatives, just going back to what we were talking about with these racial incidents that we have. And I hate to like even say incident because they're not incidents. They're just atrocities, man. Like these things that we have going down, like I would just, and I get why they do it. Like, and even there was a guy from CNN that got taken out to dinner by a Tinder date, got a little fucking loose. It was either CNN or MSNBC, and the girl recorded him, and he goes, "Yeah, like we feed off of fear, like that's how we run our headlines, and we literally put Biden in office." And he says like, "Yeah, we're starting to feel the COVID fears going away, so we got to ramp it back up with climate change, and then once that goes away, we'll go right back with COVID, and we just cycle and cycle and cycle, and that's a huge thing now." And I just don't understand why there's like, and if there has been someone that they've either committed suicide or just straight up gotten fired, but why can't there just be somebody who can go to these assholes and be like, "Listen, like, I get you guys want money, you guys want your ratings and all this insanity, but look what you're doing to the country. Look at how clearly you're eroding the country from the outside inside out." And then, so when you have cases like the 16, 15-year-old girl who got shot by police while she was holding a knife, or you have the George Floyd cases, like, don't release those body camera footages if you're going to at all. If you're going to release them at all, don't release it until you have the facts to bring it up. Like, you should have a camera footage here and a list of facts here as to why this happened. Right?
I agree. And with a lot of these news outlets, there's just so many shady people that work for these companies. Like, I'd say the best instance, TMZ. I remember when Kobe Bryant died, they released that news before his family even knew about it.
Yeah.
That's so fucked up. Like, how do you even get that news before somebody's family knows about their loved one dying? And even for the people that died along with Kobe Bryant. And then I look at something like Chadwick Boseman. His death wasn't leaked at all until his family released that. So and you really wonder, how are these news sources getting these stories, and why? You wonder why they're only putting out the negatives and causing people to be scared. And then you really think about it, that's how they make their money.
It's all money. And I think a great movie, and I'll close out with this. A great movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's called Nightcrawler. Have you seen that?
I've been meaning to for very long now.
Check it out, dude. It's a great movie. So basically what I won't spoil it for you so you can watch it. But it's a character study of this man named Lou. I forget the guy's name. But basically he's just a guy, real awkward guy, super, super skinny dude. And he just wants to make money. Like, that's all the dude wants. He just wants a job. He wants to show that he's a hard worker. And he finds out that he can make money showing up to incidents, whether it's like a car crash, a murder, a fire, whatever it is. And if he shows up quick enough, he can get footage on his camera, turn around at like, 0 to 30 in the morning, go over to the news stations and sell it to them. And so he starts making a career of, going to these horrific sites, taking the videos, selling them. He gets better equipment. He ends up hiring someone to do it with him. And just things get really dark really fast. Without spoiling it, he just allows people to die. Possibly, they leave it ambiguous, possibly commits a murder in the process. Like, it's this whole thing. And it's just the slow but methodical, just the fall of a guy that, like, he just wanted money. And once he found out how easy he could get money, he starts getting a little dopamine kick, a little high off of watching these horrible incidents happen. He starts tapping into the ugly parts of our world, and he gets a thrill off of that. And it's just watching this dude fall into it. And Jake Gyllenhaal is fucking, as usual, he's fucking amazing. But watching him in that role, he's unrecognizable. He really is. Like, he becomes unrecognizable.
I've heard for so long that's probably his best role.
One of, for sure.
Yeah, I love him and everything he does. And you get actors like that who are just so committed to really any role, and that they put everything they have into it. Like, I like him a lot in Zodiac. Did you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's good in that.
Yeah, I love him in that. And then just saw it last year. It was a recommendation from TikTok. It's called I think it's called Enemy, where he finds out that he has like a twin brother, or no, he finds somebody that looks exactly like him. And the ending, I remember seeing on TikTok people talk about how like scary the ending was. The ending was just really weird. I didn't get it, but I liked the movie a lot, and it made me like Jake Gyllenhaal even more, probably.
No, he's a fantastic actor. I was surprised they were giving him for the MCU, but I'm glad they did, as Mysterio.
I was too.
But yeah, he's fantastic. I look forward to literally, apparently he's got like 20 projects coming up. So
wow,
according to his IMDb, yeah, it's fucking crazy, man.
Holy shit.
But I really appreciate your time, dude. I appreciate you coming on.
I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I love being able to do this, sit down and talk with anybody and everybody. And this is everything that I expected and more. And I love to do it again sometime, man. It really was a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back anytime.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll talk to you a little bit after I cut the recording. But thank you again for coming on. And we'll see you guys later. Adios.
All right, later, guys.